The twin suns of the small alien world burned in the sky, one golden and one red. The ground was dry, cracked like broken glass, and the air shimmered with heat. In the middle of that empty land, a little figure bent low. She was small, thin, and fragile, yet her hands carried a glowing brick that seemed heavier than her whole body. The brick pulsed with faint blue light. Every step made her legs shake. She dragged her feet through the dust until she reached a small pile of other bricks. Slowly, with trembling arms, she placed the glowing piece on top. The pile was not just a pile. It was the beginning of something. Walls taking shape, a rough outline of a home. And far away, leaning on a broken stone pillar, a man was watching. John, a human widower. His face was rough with age and sorrow, and his eyes were dark from many sleepless nights. He had come to this planet searching for work, for distraction, for anything that would silence the ache in his heart. Years ago, he had lost his wife. Since then, he lived with silence, with empty meals, with an empty bed. He thought nothing could move him again. But this girl, this strange alien child, was changing something inside him. He had seen her first 3 days ago, carrying brick after brick, working alone. At first, he thought she was part of some colony crew. But there were no adults around. No ships, no voices, just her. Why was a child building a house all alone? Now as he watched her stumble, nearly falling with the heavy brick, something stirred in his chest. It was the same feeling he once had when he dreamed of having a family. His wife had wanted children. He had too. But fate had stolen that dream. And here, in the middle of a forgotten desert, fate was placing another test in front of him. The girl lifted another brick. Her arms wobbled. Her legs bent like they would snap. She gasped for breath, but she did not stop. John frowned. He could not look away. His voice whispered inside him, "Go help her," but another voice answered, "Don't interfere. She's not human. She's not your problem. Galactic law is strict. You could get in trouble." He stayed still. The sun sank lower, painting the desert in gold and blood. The girl fell. The brick rolled from her hands, glowing weakly in the dust. She pushed herself up, tears glimmering in her large silver eyes. She was no older than 10, by human guess, but her thin body carried scars, and her face held the weight of someone much older. John took one step forward, then stopped. He remembered his wife's last words when the illness took her. "Don't let your heart turn to stone. John, even when I'm gone." For years he ignored those words. He had built walls around himself stronger than any house. But now, watching this child, those walls were cracking. The girl dragged herself to her feet again. She picked up the glowing brick with shaking hands. She staggered to the pile and set it down, as if nothing could break her determination. John whispered to himself, "Why are you doing this, little one?" The desert gave no answer. The girl gave no answer. She kept building. Night was coming soon. On this planet, night was not gentle. Night storms tore across the land, with lightning that split the ground and winds that could throw a grown man across the plains. Without a finished shelter, the girl would not survive. John knew this. He had seen the storms before. Still she worked. Alone. A question burned in his mind, sharper than the heat. Where were her people? Why had they left her? Or worse, were they gone forever? He clenched his fists. Every brick she placed felt like a question to him. Every stone was a cry for help, even though she stayed silent. At last, the girl sat down beside the half-built wall. Her small chest rose and fell fast. She closed her eyes for a moment, her thin arms wrapping around her knees. John's heart twisted. For the first time in years, he wanted to step forward, to speak, to offer water, to lift a weight not his own, but fear held him still. He knew the galactic law. Humans were forbidden from bonding with alien children, forbidden from claiming family across species. Interference meant punishment, and yet, how could he walk away? The suns touched the horizon. The desert darkened. The girl opened her eyes again and lifted another brick. Her body swayed like it would fall, but her spirit did not bend. John watched, torn between fear and hope. He felt the ache of his loneliness pushing against the law of the galaxy. This was not just a child building a home. This was a child fighting against the universe itself, and deep inside, John wondered if he was about to fight alongside her. The suns had set, and the alien desert turned silver under the light of 2 pale moons. The night was calm for now. But John knew the calm would not last. Storms were always waiting, hiding beyond the horizon. The little girl was still at work. Her small hands placed one glowing brick on top of another. The faint blue light from the bricks lit her face, showing tired eyes and trembling lips. She did not speak. She did not ask for help. John stood in the shadows, watching. His boots pressed into the dust, his heart heavy in his chest. He wanted to step forward, but something inside held him back. She reminded him of a bird with broken wings, struggling to fly again. Fragile but stubborn, he whispered, almost to himself. Why won't you rest? The girl paused for a moment as if she had heard him. Her silver eyes turned to the darkness where he stood. For a heartbeat, their gazes locked. John felt like she could see through him, into his loneliness, into his empty memories. Then she looked away and lifted another brick. John clenched his fists. He could not just watch anymore. Quietly, he stepped out of the shadows and walked closer. His footsteps crunched softly on the ground. The girl froze, holding the heavy brick. She turned her head sharply, fear flashing across her face. She hugged the brick to her chest like a shield. John stopped a few steps away. He raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. His voice was low and gentle. It's okay, he said. I won't hurt you. The girl's lips pressed into a thin line. She did not answer. John knelt down in the dust so his height would not scare her. From his bag, he pulled out a small flask of water. He set it gently on the ground between them. The liquid sparkled under the moonlight. You need this, he said. Drink. For a long moment, the girl did not move. She just stared at the flask, her body tense. Finally, slowly, she set the brick down beside her and reached for the water. Her hands trembled as she lifted it. She sniffed it first, cautious like a wild animal. Then she drank. Her throat moved quickly. She drank like someone who had not tasted water in days. When she finished, she pressed the flask back into the dust and whispered a single word in her own tongue. John did not understand it, but her tone was soft, almost grateful. He smiled faintly. You're welcome, but the girl did not smile back. She picked up the brick again and carried it to the wall. Her thin frame bent under the weight, yet she kept moving. John rose to his feet. Let me help. He reached for another brick nearby. No, the word was sharp, surprising him. Her voice was small but full of iron. She shook her head. Her kind, it seemed, saw help as weakness. She wanted to build alone. John's heart ached. He saw himself in her, stubborn, silent, carrying pain no one else could carry. Still, he could not walk away. He sat down near the wall, watching as she worked. She staggered, but she never gave up. Each brick seemed to drain her, yet she refused to rest. The silence between them grew heavy, broken only by the sound of stone hitting stone. At last, John spoke again, voice low. You'll fall if you keep this up. You're just a child. Her hands paused. She looked at him, her silver eyes shining in the blue glow. Then slowly she placed her small hand on the half-built wall. Her thin fingers spread across the glowing bricks, and for the first time, she spoke clearly in words he could understand. This is not just a wall, she said softly. It is my life. John's breath caught. He looked at the glowing bricks again, and for the first time he noticed the faint hum coming from them. They were alive with energy, some kind of alien technology. They were not ordinary stones, the girl continued, her voice weak but steady. If I finish this house before the storm, I live. If I fail, I die. John's chest tightened. The law said not to interfere, not to bond, not to help. But how could any man stand by and watch a child fight for her life alone? He stood again, anger and sorrow battling inside him. Then you won't fail, he said firmly. Not while I'm here. But the girl shook her head. No, my people. We finish what we start, alone. Her voice cracked and her eyes shimmered with tears, though she tried to hide them. John's heart broke at that sight. He wanted to tell her that no one should have to face storms alone. He wanted to tell her about the wife he had lost, about the child he had never held, about the family stolen from him. But the words stayed locked inside. Instead, he sat down in the dust once more, close enough to guard her, far enough to respect her pride. And as she lifted another brick, he made a silent promise. If she falls, I will catch her. If she breaks, I will stand beside her. Even if the galaxy condemns me, I will not let her die. Above them, the stars burned cold and distant. The silent struggle continued, one brick at a time, and far beyond the desert, in the black of space, unseen watchers recorded everything. The desert dawn came like fire. The twin suns rose together, spilling red and gold light across the sand. Heat shimmered and the wind whispered over the half-built walls. The girl was already working. Her small hands pressed another glowing brick into place. The house had grown taller through the night. 2 low walls now stood like fragile guardians against the storm to come. John sat nearby, his back against a stone, watching her. His eyes were heavy, but he had not slept. Every time her knees buckled, he had leaned forward, ready to catch her if she fell. But she never let herself fall. She pushed through pain, carrying brick after brick. Now as the suns climbed higher, John studied the structure. It was no ordinary shelter. Each brick pulsed faintly with energy. Lines of blue light connected one stone to another, as if the house itself was alive, breathing quietly in the desert silence. He whispered to himself, "What are you building, little one?" The girl turned her head sharply, her silver eyes locking on him. She did not answer, but she pressed her small hand to the wall. At her touch, the bricks glowed brighter, humming like a living heartbeat. John felt a chill. This was more than survival. This was something sacred. He stood and walked closer, his boots crunching softly in the dust. "You said last night this house is your life," he said gently. "Tell me why." For a moment the girl said nothing. Then, in a voice small but steady, she whispered, "Because it is." She pressed her palm against her chest. "My people are gone, all gone. I am the last here." Her silver eyes clouded with pain, though she did not cry. "This house is not only for me. It holds their memory, their voices, their blood. When it is finished, they will live again, in me." John froze. The meaning struck him like a blow. The glowing bricks were not just technology. They were fragments of her people, encoded with memory, perhaps even spirit. Every stone she lifted was a piece of her family. Every wall she raised was a way to keep them alive. His throat tightened. For years he had lived with silence after losing his wife. But this child, she carried her whole world in her small hands. She carried the weight of an entire race. He looked at the half-built home again. It was more than a shelter against storms. It was a temple of survival, a tomb and a cradle all in one. The girl turned away from him, lifting another brick. Her arms shook and her thin legs trembled under the weight. She stumbled and John moved without thinking, catching the brick before it hit the ground. She gasped, startled. Her silver eyes narrowed, but she did not take the brick from his hands. Instead, she stared at him in silence, as if weighing his soul. At last, she whispered, "If you touch this, you share it. You carry what I carry." John held the glowing stone, feeling the faint vibration inside. It was warm, almost alive. For the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him, not just sorrow, but belonging. He nodded. "Then let me carry it." The girl hesitated, then stepped aside. Together, they placed the brick into the wall. The blue lines of energy spread through the structure, brighter than before, as if the house itself approved. For a moment, they stood side by side, staring at the glowing wall. John spoke softly. "You're not alone anymore." The girl's lips trembled, but she stayed silent. She bent quickly to lift another brick, hiding her face from him, but above them, hidden in the clouds, unseen machines whirred. Drones with metallic eyes recorded everything. Their cold lenses captured the moment John touched the alien bricks. The moment he stepped across the invisible line the galaxy forbade. Far away, in orbit, enforcers watched. Humans were not allowed to bond with alien children, not allowed to share their sacred burdens. And John had just broken that law. He did not know it yet. All he knew was the girl beside him, her thin frame bent under work no child should bear. All he knew was the wall growing taller, glowing brighter, humming with life. And deep in his heart, something he thought long dead began to breathe again. As the suns rose higher, the desert heat grew fierce. The girl stumbled and John handed her water again. She drank quickly, then pushed herself back to work. For hours they worked in silence, placing stone after stone. Each one hummed, each one lit up, each one made the walls stronger. The house was still only half finished, but it stood taller now, a fragile promise against the storms. At last, as the suns leaned toward evening, the girl sat down, exhausted. She leaned her small body against the glowing wall, her silver eyes half closed. John lowered himself beside her. He studied the half-built home, the strange hum of energy, the fragile but determined child. And he thought of his own empty home, lightless and silent for years. Something inside whispered to him, "This is your second chance. Don't lose it." The desert wind picked up, carrying the smell of distant storms. Dark clouds rolled across the horizon. Night would come again soon. And this time the storms would be worse. The house was only half built. The girl was weak, and far above the galaxy was already judging them both. The half-built home stood in the desert like a fragile heart still learning to beat. Its walls glowed faintly, alive with strange energy, but against the endless sky, the house looked small, unfinished, and weak. The girl slept curled up beside it, her thin arms hugging her knees. Dust covered her pale skin, and her silver eyes were closed at last, heavy with exhaustion. John watched her from a few steps away. He had promised himself he would not cross lines. He had told himself he would respect her pride, but as he looked at her small frame shivering in the cool night air, his chest ached. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought was gone forever, the feeling of being needed. He looked at the pile of glowing bricks still waiting in the dust. His hands itched to lift them to help. He remembered her words, "If you touch this, you share it." He had touched one brick already, and in that moment, he had felt something stir inside him like he was no longer hollow. Quietly, while the girl slept, John stood and lifted a brick. It vibrated faintly in his hands, warm as if it held a heartbeat. He carried it to the wall and placed it carefully. The blue energy spread through the lines, pulsing brighter for a moment. John's lips curved into the first real smile he had worn in years. He carried another, then another. Slowly, carefully, he built beside her brick by brick. With each stone, memories returned, memories of dreams he once had. His wife's laughter when they spoke of children. The quiet nights they had imagined a family, a small house filled with warmth. Those dreams had turned to ashes after she died, but here under twin moons lifting glowing bricks, John felt that dream rise again. He looked at the sleeping girl and whispered, "Maybe this is what you left me for. Sarah, maybe this is the family we never had." The desert was silent, but in his heart, he felt his wife's last words echo once more. "Don't let your heart turn to stone." By dawn, the walls were taller, stronger. John sat down, sweat covering his face, his muscles aching, but his heart was lighter. The girl stirred. Her silver eyes opened slowly. At first, she blinked in confusion at the taller walls. Then her gaze shifted to John. "You..." Her voice was sharp but softer than before. "You built." John's stomach tightened. He half expected anger. "Yes," he admitted. "I couldn't just watch." For a long moment, she was silent. Her small hands touched the new bricks. They hummed brighter under her touch, as if recognizing her. She looked at John again. Instead of anger, she whispered, "Thank you." 2 words, simple, but they struck deeper than any wound he had ever carried. John lowered his head. "You shouldn't have to do this alone." "No child should." The girl turned her face away, hiding her eyes, but he saw her shoulders tremble. She whispered something in her native tongue, soft, broken. John didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. They worked together that day. She carried small bricks, and he lifted the heavy ones. They did not speak much, but their silence was different now, no longer cold but warm. Side by side, they built. For the first time since his wife's death, John felt he was not only living but alive. He caught himself imagining the girl not as a stranger, but as a daughter. He imagined her laughter in a safe home, imagined protecting her, teaching her, giving her the life no war or storm could take away. But deep inside, a shadow stirred. He knew the galaxy did not forgive bonds like this. He knew the law was cruel. Humans were forbidden to claim alien children as family. The punishment was exile, sometimes worse. Still, when he looked at her, he thought, "Let them try to take this from me. I won't let go." That night, as the sun sank and the air cooled, John sat by the glowing walls. The girl rested against them, her head slowly drooping with sleep. She looked smaller than ever, her silver eyes heavy with dreams. John whispered softly, "You're safe now. I'll make sure of it." The walls pulsed with light, almost as if the house itself listened. But high above, in the darkness of orbit, cold eyes were watching. The drones circled, recording every moment, the human lifting alien bricks, the human sharing sacred memory, the human daring to dream of family. Far away, a voice spoke in the language of machines. Evidence collected. Galactic law violation confirmed. Enforcement required. The desert knew nothing of laws or enforcers. It only knew storms. And one was already brewing beyond the horizon. Inside the half-built home, under the gaze of moons and machines, a human widower and an alien child dreamed the same dream. A family built brick by brick, and fate was already moving to tear it apart. The desert sky darkened long before the suns had set. At first, John thought it was only clouds drifting across the horizon. But then the wind came. It carried a low roar, deep and endless, like the growl of some giant beast waiting to strike. The air itself seemed to shiver. The girl was still working, her small hands pressing glowing bricks into the wall. She looked up only once, her silver eyes narrowing at the dark sky. "The storm," she whispered. John's heart tightened. He had seen these storms before from far away. They tore ships from the ground, split the earth with fire, and buried entire camps in sand. Even men with weapons and shelters had died in them. And here was a child with only half a house to hide inside. He stepped closer. "We have to stop. You need to rest before it hits," but the girl shook her head. "Not finished. If Wall's weak, storm kills us." Her words were steady, but her thin arms trembled. She lifted another brick, nearly stumbling under the weight. John caught it before she could fall. He pressed it into the wall himself, ignoring the sting of the energy buzzing through his hands. "Then we'll finish it together." The girl looked at him, a mix of fear and trust in her silver eyes. She did not argue this time. She only nodded once, then hurried to fetch another stone. The wind howled louder. Dust spun across the ground, scratching John's skin like knives. The half-built home shook as if it were already under attack. By the time the first strike of lightning ripped open the sky, the walls stood higher, almost forming a complete circle. The air glowed bright white, and the ground cracked where the bolt landed. The girl cried out and pressed against the wall, fear plain in her face. John pulled her close. "Inside now!" They stumbled into the circle of glowing walls. There was no roof yet, only the strange humming stones rising around them. But even half-finished, the house pulsed with light, resisting the storm. The wind screamed. Sand and fire whipped through the air, rattling the walls. The energy inside the bricks surged, glowing brighter as the storm tried to tear them apart. The girl pressed her small hands against the wall, whispering words in her language. The bricks glowed in answer, lines of blue light racing across the structure. John held his weight against another section of wall, bracing it as if his own body could shield it. His muscles strained, his back burned, but he did not move. The storm roared like a monster hungry to swallow them. Lightning slammed down again and again, shaking the ground. One blast struck close, sending shards of glowing sand into the air. The walls cracked, light flickering weakly. The girl cried out in pain as though the damage had struck her own body. She fell to her knees. John grabbed her shoulders. "Stay with me." Her silver eyes glimmered with tears. "If walls fall, I die." John looked at her fragile frame, at the fear twisting her small face. Something deep inside him snapped. He had lost his wife to illness, powerless to save her. He would not lose this child to a storm. Not again. He pressed both his palms to the cracked bricks. Pain shot through his arms, a burning energy that nearly broke him. But the wall flared brighter at his touch, the lines of blue reconnecting. The girl gasped. You hold it with me?" John gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. "Yes, you're not alone." Together they pressed their hands to the wall. The storm screamed louder, as if furious at being resisted. Lightning flashed so close that the air itself caught fire. Wind slammed into them, forcing them back. Sand cut at their skin. But the walls held. The girl whispered words of her people, and John whispered words of his own heart, silent promises that he would protect her, even if the galaxy itself rose against him. Hours passed like an eternity. Finally, the storm began to weaken. The winds lowered their roar. The lightning faded into distant clouds. The desert grew quiet again, though broken and scarred. The house still stood, cracked, glowing faintly but alive. Inside, John collapsed to the ground, his chest heaving. His arms felt burned, his body heavy, but the girl was safe. She leaned against him, trembling but alive. Her silver eyes looked up at him with something new, something soft, fragile. "You stayed." John placed a hand gently on her head, brushing dust from her tangled hair. His voice was rough but steady. "I told you. You're not alone anymore. For the first time, She let her head rest against his shoulder, and for the first time in years, John felt the weight of family, something he thought he had buried forever. But beyond the stars, the machines still watched. They had seen him touch the sacred walls. They had seen him fight the storm for her. They had seen him protect her as if she were his own blood. And to the enforcers of galactic law, that was the greatest crime of all. Morning came soft and quiet after the storm, but the desert did not feel peaceful. The air was heavy, as if holding its breath. The glowing walls of the half-built home stood scarred but alive, pulsing faintly with blue light. John sat near the girl, his body aching from the long fight against the storm. His arms bore red burns where the brick's energy had stung him, but he did not care. The girl was safe. She slept with her head against his shoulder, her breathing slow and steady. For the first time in years, John felt he had a purpose. He was not just a broken man anymore. He was someone's protector. But the silence broke with a sound that chilled him to the bone, a deep hum, metallic, growing louder. John lifted his head. Across the horizon, shadows moved against the rising suns. A sleek silver ship cut through the desert sky, its engines shaking the ground. It descended slowly, dust exploding beneath it. The girl woke with a start. Her silver eyes widened in terror. She gripped John's arm. "Enforcers," she whispered. Her voice shook. "They come." The ship landed in a storm of sand. Its hull bore the mark of the Galactic Authority, a cold symbol of law that stretched across countless worlds. From its belly, figures marched out. Tall, metallic, their bodies shining like blades. Their faces were masks of steel, eyes glowing red with no hint of mercy. They moved as one, each step heavy, final. John rose to his feet, placing himself in front of the girl. His heart pounded, but his voice was firm. "Stay behind me." The enforcers stopped before the half-built home. Their leader, taller than the rest, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "Human John, you have broken the law." The sound echoed through the desert, cold and merciless. John clenched his fists. "I did what anyone with a heart would do. She's just a child." The leader's red eyes flashed. "She is not yours. The law is clear. No human may bond with an alien child. No human may share sacred memory. You have touched the stones. You have claimed what is forbidden." Behind him, the girl trembled. She stepped forward, clutching John's arm. "He saved me. Without him, I die. He is family now." The enforcer turned its gaze on her. "Silence. Your kind is broken. You are alone. The law does not bend for orphans." The girl's silver eyes filled with tears. She pressed her face against John's side, clinging to him. For the first time, she looked like the child she truly was. Not a builder, not a survivor, just a frightened girl. John's chest burned. He glared at the metallic beings. "If your law cannot see the difference between crime and compassion, then your law is broken." The leader's voice rumbled louder. "The law is the spine of the galaxy. Without it, all falls to chaos. You will release the child now." The enforcers stepped closer. Their heavy feet shook the ground. Their shadows fell across the glowing walls. John spread his arms wide, shielding the girl. His voice thundered with a strength he did not know he still had. No, the desert went silent. Even the wind seemed to freeze. The leader tilted its head. "You defy us?" John's eyes burned with fire. "I've lost family once. I will not lose her too. If you want her, you'll have to take her over my body." The girl gasped, clinging tighter to him. For a moment, she looked up at him as if seeing something she had never known, someone who would fight the galaxy itself for her. The enforcers raised their arms. From their metallic wrists, weapons slid out, glowing with deadly light. The girl cried out, "No!" She stepped forward, placing her small hands against the half-built wall. The bricks answered her touch, glowing brighter than ever before. A surge of blue energy rippled through the structure. The air vibrated with power, and a strange sound filled the desert, like voices whispering, like echoes of people long gone. The girl spoke, her voice trembling but strong. "This house holds memory. It holds my people. If you destroy him, you destroy them too. He has shared our burden. He is part of us now." The walls blazed with light, projecting shimmering figures into the air, shadows of her people standing tall, their faces solemn. The desert was filled with their voices echoing in a chorus. "He is one of us. He has honored life. The enforcers froze. For the first time, their metallic bodies hesitated. Their weapons dimmed slightly. John looked at the glowing visions, awe and sorrow mixing in his chest. The girl's people, gone but not forgotten, had spoken through her home. The leader's red eyes flickered. For a moment, silence stretched long and heavy. Then its voice came lower, almost uncertain. The law does not speak of this. The girl's voice broke into a cry. Then let it change. John stepped forward, his voice iron. If your law cannot see love, then your law is blind. You call me criminal for saving a child? Then I will wear that title proudly. The desert trembled with his words. The enforcers stood still, locked in silence. Then slowly the leader lowered its weapon. One by one, the others followed. Without another word, they turned back to their ship. The engines roared to life. Dust swallowed the metallic figures as they lifted into the sky, leaving the desert behind. John fell to his knees, breath shaking. The girl wrapped her arms around him, holding tight. The half-built home glowed brighter than ever, its walls alive with memory and promise. For now, they were safe. But John knew the galaxy would not forget this act of defiance. Judgment might return, and yet as he held the girl close, he whispered, "Let them come. We'll stand together." The desert was quiet again. The silver ship of the enforcers had vanished into the sky, leaving only silence and a trail of dust. John stayed on his knees, holding the girl as if she might disappear if he let go. His body was weak, his arms burned from the storm, but his spirit was stronger than it had been in years. The girl clung to him, her small fingers gripping his torn shirt. Her silver eyes still shimmered with tears, but her voice was steady. "You did not let them take me." John brushed the dust from her tangled hair. "They had no right. No one will take you from me." For a long moment they stayed like that, two broken souls finding strength in each other. Then the girl stood. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and looked at the half-built walls. The blue light pulsed gently, as if waiting. "It is not finished," she whispered. John rose to his feet beside her. His legs trembled, but his eyes burned with resolve. "Then let's finish it. Together." Brick by brick, the suns climbed higher, chasing away the cool of night. Dust sparkled in their light. John lifted the heavy bricks, his arms aching, while the girl carried smaller ones. Every time their hands touched the glowing stones, the walls hummed, alive with memory. The blue line spread, connecting each new piece to the whole. As the walls grew taller, John felt something strange inside him. It was not just the warmth of the stones, it was the warmth of belonging. With every brick, the emptiness in his chest filled a little more. The girl worked with quiet determination. Sometimes her thin frame wavered, but John was there to steady her. Sometimes John's strength faltered, but the girl's sharp eyes urged him on. They were two halves of one effort, building not only a house but a bond. By nightfall, the walls closed into a circle, and the roof began to take shape. When the last stone was placed, the house glowed brighter than ever before. The air inside hummed softly like the steady beat of a heart. The girl placed her small hand on the finished wall. Her silver eyes glistened. "It is done." John pressed his hand beside hers. The house pulsed with light as if recognizing both of them. For a moment, John thought he heard voices again, the faint chorus of her people, whispering their approval. A home at last that night. The desert storm came again, fiercer than before, but this time, John and the girl sat inside the finished home. The walls glowed strong, unshaken by the raging wind. Lightning flashed outside, but the blue light inside stayed calm and steady. The girl leaned against John's side, safe for the first time in many nights. "They cannot hurt us now," she whispered. John looked at the glowing walls and then at her small, tired face. "No storm will touch you. Not while I live." She closed her eyes and her breathing slowed. For the first time, she slept without fear. John stayed awake, listening to the hum of the home. His wife's face came to his mind, her last words echoing softly. "Don't let your heart turn to stone." He smiled faintly, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I didn't, Sarah. You were right. I found her." The new dawn, when the suns rose again, the desert was golden. The house stood bright and unbroken, its walls gleaming with life. The girl stepped outside, her silver eyes wide. For the first time, her face carried a smile. "It is strong. It is safe." John joined her, standing tall despite his weary body. "It's more than safe. It's home. She turned to him, tilting her head. Home, John nodded. Yes, a place where storms can't touch us. Where we're not alone, where family lives. The word family lingered in the air. The girl's lips trembled and she looked down, whispering softly, family, as if testing the sound for the first time. When she looked back up, her eyes shone with something brighter than tears. Then I am not the last anymore. John placed his hand gently on her shoulder. No, you're not. Unseen watchers far above, in the cold black of space, the Enforcer ship drifted in silence. The metallic beings inside watched their recordings again and again. The human lifting the alien child. The house glowing with shared memory. The bond forged in defiance of law. One of the Enforcers spoke at last. He has broken the code, but he has also built what law cannot describe. Another answered, perhaps law must bend, or perhaps judgment waits. The ship vanished into the stars, leaving the desert world behind. A foundation of hope back on the ground. John and the girl worked through the day. They added more bricks, strengthened the walls, and shaped the house into something larger than survival. It was not just a shelter now, it was a future. At night they sat by the glowing walls, sharing quiet food and water. The girl laughed once, soft, uncertain, but real. John's heart swelled at the sound. He thought of all the years he had lived in silence, drowning in grief. Now for the first time, he had someone to protect, someone to guide, someone who gave his life meaning. Brick by brick, they had built not only a home but a family, and though the galaxy might never forgive, though the Enforcers might one day return, John knew one truth. Some laws are written in books, others are written in the heart, and the heart always wins.